Detroit Lions fans, Detroit Den 313 back with another one, a good one. Literally the draft day. Steve and I are so excited, man. I can't even really put it into words. It seems like this day was coming along very slowly, and then all of a sudden, at the snap of the finger, it was here. Steve, how are you feeling?
We're not the only ones excited, Will. All right. Mrs. Detroit Lion herself, Dan Campbell's wife, put out this on her Instagram
Mm,
today. Holly Campbell just letting Brad cook. All right. Everyone's fired up. Everyone knows how important this draft is. But yesterday during our live, or not, it wasn't a live show. Our draft, our fantasy draft, whatever you want to call it, mock draft. Geez, it's early in the morning for me. No sleep. Team baby, just no sleep. We had some breaking news about Kirby Joseph. He signed a deal yesterday. We didn't really get to dive fully into it. With a 4-year deal, $86 million. Will, how do you feel about Kirby getting that absolute truck backed up to his house full of money?
It's exactly what I expected. We talked about it in previous episodes when we talked about Kirby Joseph, the contract coming up. I expected that he would be paid and kept a Lion. The Detroit Lions are a team who typically, if you do your job, if you do what's expected of you, they give you a bag. So when we talk about these Detroit Lions moving forward, we got to put some respect on the guys that are performing at a high level. I think they're going to get paid, and I think Brad's going to figure out a way to keep this core group of young guys together until they're old. And once they get old, then maybe we move on. But it's a lot of talk that's talked about with the Sam LaCordas and Brian Branches and Aiden Hutchinsons, and the list goes on. I think that's the core group that we're talking about when we're talking about people getting bags and getting paid. These free agents that come in, they're going to be coming in to do a job for a few seasons, and then they're going to send them on their way. Brad drafts his guys. He's loyal to his guys if they do what that is expected of them. And I think that's just what we saw with Kirby Joseph.
Um, well, someone's going to be left out. All right, there's just not enough money for everyone. I just don't see how there's going to be. When all those names you mentioned, Gibbs, Laporta, JMO, we've talked about. I think the only one we know for sure is getting a contract is going to be Aiden Hutchinson. I just don't know how much money is left to go around when it talks to keep it. Like, that's a big core. We have to keep the core together, but you have to ask yourself, how big is the core? Like, is it 7 people? Is it 8? Is it 9? Can I make that down to 6? Like, I don't know. I'm interested to see. Luckily, we don't really have to worry about it right now, but each year this is going to be a conversation. I know Hutch. I think his deal is probably going to get done before training camp, if I had to guess, and that's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $40 million. And then JMO, I haven't heard exactly. Are we picking up that 5th-year option? Because I think that has to be decided pretty soon. I don't think there's been any confirmation on that, but I would assume that we're picking up the 5th year. I don't know. Well, it's interesting. I think Kirby Joseph deserves it, though. I think he's the best safety in football. And this is going to look like an absolute value deal once Kyle Hamilton for the Baltimore Ravens signs his. We're going to be saying, dang, we got Kirby Joseph at a pretty good rate. So I think you are off by maybe $1 million. That's it. I mean, so if you want to just pay me the difference, give me that $1 million, we'll call it even. You were pretty close. So hats off to you,
Yeah.
Will. Will knows contracts, I guess, just over there studying in the library and crunching numbers. Is that what you do on your days off?
Actually, I was doing that for a while because I was trying to figure out how the heck the Philadelphia Eagles were paying all of these people. Is it fair? Are they cheating? What the heck is going on? But I think we're making it. And Steve, I'll Venmo that to you. I don't know. That's
Cash
via.
only. $1 million is cash only for me. Sorry.
Oh, okay, I understand. Well, I'll get that to you 1 penny at a time for the rest of my life. But that said, I think honestly, we're making this more complicated than it has to be. And by we, I mean us and Detroit Lions fans. By these contracts, I think the bottom line is you're going to play your way into your contract. The NFL stands for not for long. We say it all of the time. So what I mean by that is this: if you're a guy like DeAndre Swift and there's a guy in the draft by the name of Jahmyr Gibbs, or there's a guy in the draft who can outplay you or outperform you, you're going to be replaced. If you are a guy who there's not people in the draft who can outperform you, you're going to get a bag, right? So I think that's really what it boils down to. So the players that are going to get replaced, or the players that are going to be left out of the bag, is going to be guys that are getting outperformed by players in camp, right? So if you get a guy like, let's say, Ennis Rakestraw plays out of his mind, okay, well, we might not be looking at a long stay of a guy like DJ Reed. We might not be looking at a long stay of a guy like Amik Robertson. Right? Maybe they won't get that next deal. You know what I mean? After their contract expires, I think that's what we're going to see initially. And then when we talk about that core group, yeah, man, if we draft, and I'm not saying that this will get into this, I'm sure, If we draft Colston Loveland and it comes up to pay Sam Laporta, then maybe he's expendable at that time. I'm not saying that that's what I want to happen. I love Sam Laporta. I'm just using it as an example. If we draft a young rookie and he's outperforming the veteran, of course, it makes financial sense to not give the veteran a bag when you got this young guy on a rookie deal. Okay, now I can move on. But as long as this core group is outperforming the guys that are coming in, I think they're going to continue to sign their guys. And that's just the bottom line for me. So when you start to talk about guys like Aiden Hutchinson, when you start to talk about guys like Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, I think those guys are going to continue to outperform the competition until they get on, Steve, what you call the back nine. When they get on that back nine, then maybe some young guys can come in and compete for those jobs. But those guys are going to be the core group. Now, when we start to talk about some of these other guys, the Taylor Deckers, he's on the back nine. Right there could be a guy who we draft, maybe not in this year's draft, but next year's draft, who could come in, get his contract off of the books, and then we got another rookie deal that's on the books moving forward. Graham Glasgow, he's on that back nine. Maybe we get his contract off of the books, and then we got some room to make money. So I think the bottom line is we don't have to be in as much of a panic as I think that some people are. And Steve, I'm not saying that you're quite in that boat, but some people are like, oh man, we're gonna lose Brian Branch, we're gonna lose Sam Laporta, we're not gonna be able to sign JMO. I think there's a way where we can sign those guys. And if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles kind of as the benchmark, because somehow they figure out a way to just not only pay their guys, but bring in guys like Saquon Barkley and pay him a whole bag. So I think when you look at the way that they structure their deals, and I don't want to turn this into a salary cap show, so I'll leave it at this, but they're front end and back end. So one guy might be getting 50 million one year, and then the next year he's getting 2, 3, 4 million, right? And then the other guy is getting the 50 million. You know what I mean? So they're front loading, they're back loading, they're taking some off of the books by paying huge signing bonuses. There's a way to get this thing done. We got Mr. Disner, who is also a wizard, man, and put some respect on his name. So I think we'll be just fine, Steve.
I think the biggest name you should have mentioned there was Jared Goff. If we're talking about books and big contracts, he's the biggest contract on the book. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything has to happen tonight or this weekend at the draft, but it might be something to pay attention to in the future because same thing. Maybe there's a rookie out there that Brad Holmes thinks can come out and outplay Jared Goff as he's getting older. And I'm not calling or pounding the table for Jared Goff to be replaced immediately, but the theory fits that you just gave. Maybe within the next 1 or 2 years, we make an aggressive move to get a quarterback and let him sit for a year. And then Jared's contract's up. Hey, Jared, thanks for your time. Thanks for your service. We're going to be moving on. And we're going to go with this young rookie who's going to be, I don't know, 8 million compared to year 40s or something like that. So interesting to see. But, Will, it's draft day. It's draft day. We're like, I bet we're about 13, 14 hours away from the Detroit Lions making a pick. Do you have any last minute predictions? Do you think, how do you think tonight and this weekend is going to go? I don't want to say just tonight. Like tonight's fun. Tonight's the start, but those middle rounds are more important than the first rounds, in my opinion. So what do you think is going to happen this weekend?
Two things. Just going back to what you just said as far as Jared Goff goes, I haven't given up on Hendon Hooker. If we get through this draft process and Hendon Hooker is still on the Detroit Lions, then I think there's still a potential that he gets in this season and competes and plays out of his mind. He's been a long-term guy, a long-term development guy. This is year 3. Maybe you see a huge jump from him because I still don't think you got to give him a crazy bag comparable to the guys that are at the top in the league. You could give him a modest bag, you know what I mean, moving forward. And maybe he's a guy who could be in that conversation. Just a thought. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I haven't completely given up on Hendon Hooker. I just wanted to say that. Today and this weekend, I'll start with today, Steve. Today, I am expecting to see Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams, a Detroit Lion. That's what I'm expecting today, right? And I'm not saying that has to happen, but if I were a betting man, and I'm not, I say it all the time, Steve's the better out of the group of us. If I was going to make a bet, I would call Steve and ask him. He always says, no, don't ask him. But I'm telling you, if I was going to make a bet, I would call Steve and ask him because he has a strong understanding of how it's done. But if I were to place a bet today and say who am I expecting to be a Detroit Lion, I'd have it down to 4 guys, but I don't want to, if I say all 4 guys, Steve is going to be like, oh man, you just named everybody in the draft. So I'm expecting Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams to end up with Detroit Lions. I think those guys both would fit exactly what the Detroit Lions have drafted in history, and I think those are guys who could also play either the 3-4, the 4-2-5, or the 4-3. They're scheme versatile. So for those reasons, I'm expecting to hear one of those two guys' name called today. Steve, where you at?
Well, I think that both of those names, the first thing I think of is Brad Holmes trading up, because I don't think either one of those guys has fallen to 28. So is that your prediction that the Brad Holmes makes a move and he cooks up a master class today and he goes out and gets a guy that he really wants? Because personally just don't see either one of those two falling to 28.
Honestly, I think that it's I could see him moving up, but I think I could see a path to where Michael Williams slides down the boards just because he's been injured. Right. So if a team is looking at him and they're saying, hey, man, this guy has been banged up, this guy, I don't know if he's going to have injury concerns moving forward. For that reason, I could see him. And then I could see Shamar Stewart, man, because of the production, because of the lack of production. Maybe nobody, takes a chance on him and maybe he slides down the board. So am I saying that it's probable that either one of those guys is at 28? I'm not saying it's probable, but I don't think that it's far-fetched either. There's major concerns with both of them. Mike Hill is the injury, and then Shamar Stewart is the lack of production. So I could easily see those guys sliding down the board because we've seen guys who are quote unquote physical freaks in the past slide down the board because of lack of production, man. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit. But there's two other guys that are kind of contingency plans as well. And I shouldn't just say two, man. There's a ton of defensive tackles and defensive ends guys in this draft, along with some other players, linemen and such.
I think Brad Holmes is moving up tonight. All right. And for everyone saying that I'm just trying to be aggressive, if you've been watching the show, I've been calling for a trade back. All right, I've been begging for it. My one theory really kind of contradicts itself because I want to move back in the draft and get an extra pick in that top 100. But I've also said that I don't think that the Detroit Lions are bringing 7 players into training camp and expecting them all to make a team. So if I'm trading back and getting an extra piece, that means that I'm drafting 8 players this weekend, which really contradicts what I say. So I don't know. I want that 4 picks in the top 100. I don't know how that looks. I would rather see Brad maybe stay put at 20, move back from 28 and have an early pick tomorrow, like when in the first 4 picks tomorrow, and kind of maneuver the second and third rounds tomorrow. So, I mean, if I have to make a trade up, I'm with you on those two guys, but I think that Darius Alexander's a Detroit Lion. I've been saying it for a week now since Will gave me the information. You put this plan into motion, Will. You told me you were bored at work one day. You were working the thumbs, working the Google, seeing, tracking Brad like I taught you. You follow the master. My young Padawan has done very well. Yes. Where Brad goes tells us something. All right. Actions speak louder than words. Brad, you could sit up there in those press conferences and you can give vague answers, but we see through it with your actions, and it's a good thing. I think Darius Alexander is a hell of a piece. He could play DN, D tackle. He's a freak athlete, moves very fast, laterally, forward. Like he checks every single box for me. Not a first-round talent, though, so I'll say that tomorrow, at some point, Darius Alexander is going to be a Detroit Lion. Today, I don't know who we're leaving with today, Will, but if I had to take a shot in the dark and say that we stay put at 28, and this might not be my number one player, and he's not, but it's just something about James Pierce Jr. I just think that if we stay there at 28, he's the guy, and that's not the guy who I want. Who I want is Donovan Ezaraku, so I'll put that out into the world for first-time watchers here today. So for everyone who says he doesn't fit the scheme, he's got character concerns, like, trust me, we know. We've done our research. We've studied up on him, but just a gut feeling. I don't know, and it's not what I want. I won't be disappointed, but something about it. I just think James Pierce Jr. ends up a Detroit Lion tonight. But if we trade up, I really like one of those two guys, or maybe even a Nick Scorton, or I a little off subject, Will, but I saw a mock draft. I think it was from Peter Schrager, who's new to the NFL or ESPN from the NFL Network. Did you see his mock draft the other day?
I didn't.
He had Will Johnson falling to the Detroit Lions at pick 28.
Oh, I heard about it then. I've heard about it. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Will Johnson, I'll say this. I'm not as cutthroat on Will Johnson as you are because I watched a behind the scenes Will Johnson, and it was going through the draft process. It was talking about him preparing those drafts, the time at Michigan, and just him and Maxwell Harrison. And it was a whole group of guys that they were talking about. But I watched that, and it gave me a little bit more insight on why he wasn't playing, what was going on, what Michigan was saying through that process, and who he is as a person. I'd be happy if we got Will Campbell. I don't know that it's what
Will
we
Johnson.
or Will Johnson. I'm sorry. I'd be all right with Will Campbell too.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I'd be happy if we got Will Johnson, man. I don't think it's what we need. I don't think that it's necessarily a route that makes sense for this draft, but I would be like, hey, listen, Terry and Arnold, Will Johnson for I don't know, the next 10 years is gonna be a thing. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. Wow. Like
Secondary set for a long time.
yeah, like it would be nuts. So I'm not gonna sit up here and say that I would hate it, but I would be a little bit confused about what we were doing.
All I'll say is, please don't ruin my night, Detroit Lions. Please don't ruin my draft night. All right, I can't. I don't know. The guy hasn't played football since October. I'm sorry. You won a national championship in 2024. Came back to Michigan. You're supposed to be the leader of the team. You sat out half the season. You really didn't even play much in conference play. Didn't play against Ohio State. Sat out the bowl game. And I get it. Look, it's a business decision. Possibly. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know what was really going on, but I understand. You're trying to set yourself up for success in your family for the next 20 years or the rest of your life. So sitting out, if you play in one of those meaningless Michigan games where we were like 7-5, season was kind of over, but beating Ohio State was really the only thing left to achieve. I get it. If you play in one of those games and you tear your knee and you become a second or third round pick, it costs you millions, and that might be the only contract you get. I don't know. So I understand it from that standpoint, but looking at this from a Detroit Lions standpoint, the guy hasn't played football since October. He didn't work out at the combine, didn't work out at his pro day. So I just have to question a lot of things without beating him up too much. And I'm a Michigan guy. Like that's my college team. That's Will's college team. But when it comes to the Detroit Lions, I'm firm but fair. I'm trying to give an honest opinion here. I'm not interested in Will Johnson. And on top of that, I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it's a massive position of need. If that scenario plays out, could he be best player available on the board? Probably, but I don't know. Just my 2 cents. I'd stay away from Will Johnson. I think he's a hell of a player, but I don't know. I question some other things, some stuff that I think mean some character issues. If I'm being honest, like how much does he really want to play football? But I get it. College is more of a business decision. You want to get to the NFL. If you get hurt in a meaningless, stupid game that doesn't mean nothing, and you're Will Johnson and you're a national championship, like what more do you have to prove? I understand some of it, but I don't know. I'm very conflicted. But for me, hard pass on Will Johnson.
Yeah, I get it. I want to go back to James Pierce Jr., man, because earlier today I was talking to a good buddy of mine. I'll shout him out, Bob McLaughlin. Coaches with us in the little kids league, man, on the junior league, where my son's playing right now, and league president actually. But we were talking earlier today, and he asked me who I thought the Lions were going to draft, and I gave him a little bit of early sauce. I told him I thought that it would probably be Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams. But he went on to ask me about James Pierce Jr. and I told him this. I really like James Pierce Jr.'s game. And I think that we could look back on this draft and say, man, I don't know, 20-something teams or more passed on James Pierce Jr. because of quote-unquote character concerns. And they missed out on a guy who ends up being the best player out of this draft class. But two guys that I absolutely love, two guys that I would be after. And I don't, me and Steve don't get to interview these guys. We don't get to have guys looking and digging into all of their backgrounds and stuff like that. But Jahad Campbell and James Pierce Jr. are two guys that I really, 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 really like in this draft. I think they're dynamic. I think that they're special players. I think that they're guys that are going to elevate whatever defense they end up in. And I think it would be a surprise and a shock to a lot of people if that's the route that they went. But I would be really happy. I don't think that is probable, but those are two guys that I absolutely love on the draft in this draft, man. And I'm just sick of seeing quarterbacks come to Detroit and run all over the place. And I think that those are two guys that can help with that immensely. If you're talking about adding Jahad Campbell to this defense with Alex Anzalone, with Jack Campbell, I think it would help out a lot. And then we haven't even talked about when we go and select Darius Alexander in the second round. So, but Steve, you talked about us trading up. I don't know that we'll trade up today, but I would be excited if we did. And I don't know how we trade up in both case scenarios, if we trade up in the second round and we trade up in the first round. But I'm really seeing us trading up tomorrow to go get Darius Alexander because I don't think he'll be there at pick 60. But today, I don't know. Brad obviously has more knowledge than me and Steve put together, like Steve said in his pinky finger. So maybe Brad figures out a way to trade up in the first and the second round. Because as we both believe, don't think that he's going to be messing around and drafting 8 players, and 8 players are going to make this roster. So maybe he understands that already. He understands the financial restraints that we're under already. He doesn't even want to try to sign 8 guys. So maybe he says, hey, I'm going to trade up and I'm going to leave this draft with 3 players, 4 players. That makes sense to me. I just don't know how he gets it done without getting into future picks or getting into guys like Hendon Hooker. But Brad knows what he's going to do. That's what I'm hoping for. But, man, if we could get James Pierce Jr. on this team or Jahad Campbell and elevate this defense, then go get a guy like Darius Alexander, I'd be thrilled, Steve.
Let me ask you one final question, Will. Is there anything tonight, round 1, that would make you mad?
That would make me mad?
Yeah.
I'm going to say no because I trust Brad that much. Brad has earned my trust to that level. He's not going to do anything that's going to make me angry. Now, he can confuse me, which, I mean, I'm easily confused, so that's not really a big deal. But he can confuse me tonight, but he's not going to make me angry because the first thing I'm going to do if I don't understand it and I don't necessarily agree with it, like my opinion matters to him, but if I don't understand or agree with what he does, the first thing I'm going to do is try to figure out why he did what he did, because his success over the past few years has earned that. So not angry, but he could confuse me. Steve, what about you? Could he do anything that would make you angry other than draft Will Johnson or Jalen Milroe?
Honestly, stop with the Jalen Milroe thing. Don't even put that into the world.
Hey, yesterday you said he's going in the top 35.
Yeah, he probably is. Luckily, we only have one of those picks in the top 35, so we got some room to avoid him. I just don't want an offensive lineman tonight in round 1. I just look at round 1 picks as very valuable. Someone that can get on a field, even if it's just in a role with an offensive line, you're set. You don't shuffle your offensive line around. I get it. Our offensive line's banged up. You know, if something were to happen, we'd probably need them, or, you know, we got some guys retired. That's fine. I have no problem drafting offensive line in the 2nd or 3rd round. But tonight, I need someone who can make an impact. And I know everyone in the Detroit Lions universe is calling for an edge rusher. I'm with you guys. If Brad Holmes decides to go corner, wide receiver, or tight end, like it makes sense, and I understand the logic behind that. But offensive lineman, I just can't draft someone and sit them on the bench for at least 1 year, assuming everyone stays healthy. So that I don't want to use the word. I guess I asked the question. So would it make me mad? I would be very, very confused. I would be wondering, why are we drafting an offensive lineman when this defense was at the bottom of the rankings in every single thing, every single category last year? And I know we were hurt, but I just look at offense, defense. It's a glaring need on defense to get it on par with the offense. So I think Brad will address it. Just please don't draft an offensive lineman in round 1. That's all I ask.
Dig it.
Anything else today?
No, man, I'm excited. Can't wait. Can't wait to see what happens, man.
Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another show breaking down whatever Brad Holmes decides to do. If he moves up, moves back, maybe we're talking a player we drafted, maybe we're talking 2 players we drafted. We have no idea. We'll roll with the punches and adapt as we need to. Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.
Peace.